And we thought we'd end on this note. Talking of the police, perhaps it is no wonder that the police aren't around, they don't solve crimes, and they don't fulfil their duties as perhaps they once might have done, because they're too busy being politically correct, or rather overtly political correct. This is a story in the Times that says, and I kid you not, this is not April the 1st, this is definitely not an April Fool, this is true. Trans police can now hold multiple warrant cards for different genders. I'll just read that again. Trans police can hold multiple warrant cards for different genders. And so it's not just that you, as a man that wants to be a woman and therefore is a trans woman, can hold both a male warrant card by way of your biological sex and also a female warrant card because you have decided to somehow identify as a woman. It gets even more ridiculous because, of course, there are those that say that they are not just gender fluid, but subscribe to perhaps many of multiple genders. I think the perceived wisdom by the lunatics that believe this guff is that there can be up to 500 different genders. Believe me, that is not me that thinks that. I'm very simplistic and very old-fashioned in that I believe, because it's true, that there are two, male and female. Identify as what you like, don't impose it upon us though. Look, let's talk about this nonsense to Connie Shaw, this ridiculous edict that 11 police forces in England and Wales have said, and this is a result of a Freedom of Information request, that trans officers can have multiple warrant cards. Is it any wonder that our police are rubbish, Connie?
Well, yes, it's not any wonder. So the Daily Mail has revealed that 1 in 4 police forces now allow trans-identified male police officers to strip search female suspects. And this is the reality when we're talking about the cards that people can hold that say they're a certain gender. The danger here is that we now are giving the right to male police officers who say that they're women to not only access female spaces within staff quarters, including changing rooms and showers, but search female suspects. And this flies in the face of the in the face of the Police and Criminal Evidence Act 1984, which states that searches involving the removal of more than outer clothing are required to be conducted by and only in the presence of officers or staff members of the same sex as the suspect and out of public view. And when we talk about intimate searches, we're not just talking about removing clothing, we are talking about genital inspections. So when the case of child Q, who was the 15-year-old schoolgirl who was wrongly accused of possessing drugs, she was made to bend over to have her genitals inspected. They are the sort of searches that male police officers who say that they are women are now being given the right to carry out. And this story that the Daily Mail has revealed in the last couple of days has actually been going on for a lot longer. So this policy was actually introduced in December 2021, and it was the Women's Rights Network who brought this to the public sphere in early 2022 and subsequently published a report in January 2024 after which the government said that they would suspend these policies and that they needed to be revised.
So this is something, though, Connie, that seemingly individual police forces can decide for themselves rather than there being a national legislative diktat. So any police force, which is why, I mean, most of them, it seems, 2/3 of police forces are allowing male officers and civilian staff to identify as women, and also not just to perform those cavity searches completely inappropriately, but also to use women's showers, toilets and change rooms. That seems to be just at the behest of each individual police force. So if you get someone at the top of that police force, a chief constable or a police and crime commissioner, that is particularly woke and determined to advance their own political ideology, however warped it is, then the whole force has to step into line.
Mm-hmm. And in the policy that the National Police Chief Council introduced, there's actually reference to disciplinary action that can be taken against officers who speak out against this. So Kathy Larkman, who is the National Policing Lead for the Women's Rights Network, who led this report, she served as a police officer for 31 years. She knows firsthand how captured the police force is and what it's like to be a female police officer, worried about the potential of you losing your job if you speak speak out against this. I mean, you would have thought that the country would have learnt its lesson after the awful murder of Sarah Everard, where we learnt the hard way the extent to which males or men will go to exploit their positions of authority. And now the state is not only going back on their word about regaining the trust of women in policing, but it now are offering state-sanctioned sexual assault. I mean, something that's even more sinister about this whole policy is that in November, the Ministry of Justice published figures that says that 62% of men who identify as women in prison have been convicted of at least one sexual offence.
Yeah, now, I was just talking to Philip Ingram about that. I mean, what an abhorrent statistic.
Yes, and so we already know that. So we already know that men are using this loophole to identify as women to access female spaces. And now the actual police force are allowing men to take advantage of this.
So in the pursuit of political correctness and wokeism, we are putting women and girls in danger.
Yes, I mean, perhaps what is the most disturbing aspect is that this policy was put in place to attract more transgender individuals to join the police force.
But why? So, they only make up 0.5% of the UK population. Why would there be such a drive in the UK to recruit from a pool that is so small?
I'm not sure. But at the end of the day, the police have admitted that the policy of allowing males who say they're females to search intimately female suspects has been put in place to attract more transgender people to the police force. I mean, you can't get much sicker than that.
Let me just underline this. This is a small list of just some of the forces that advocate this nonsense. Forces which allow male staff who identify as female to use women's facilities, for instance, include Thames Valley, Essex, that's my force, well, not mine, but the force in which I'm ashamed to live, frankly, Leicestershire, Avon and Somerset, Powys, Merseyside and Police Scotland. Thames Valley allows officers to carry multiple warrant cards, as do others including Norfolk, Cheshire and Leicestershire. Others such as Bedfordshire and Essex allow 2 warrant cards to be held, one presumably male and female. I guess that's progress, isn't it? The fact that you don't, they're not encouraging you to hold 500 if you believe that you're of multiple gender. Essex Police Force's policy states that during early transition there may be a need to have 2 warrant cards so that any off-duty incidents do not result in the staff member having to out themselves. I mean, this is not just nonsense, this is dangerous, sinister stuff. And by the way, the Police and Crime Commissioner for Essex is supposed to be a Conservative, Roger Hurst. He's already under fire for the way that his force treated Alison Pearson recently. And his force, by the way, Roger, is failing when it comes to increase in crime and also lack of detection, failing on all measures. You'd think that police forces would be more focused on what is right, correct and proper when it comes to policing rather than this woke nonsense.
Yes, you would, and especially you'd expect Conservative leaders to be opposed to this, but we have to remember it was the Conservative Party who were trying, Theresa May in particular, who were trying to push self-ID, which would mean that it was just by extremely easy for anyone to change their legal sex. This was a Conservative policy, and perhaps if it wasn't for Brexit and other legislative priorities, that self-ID probably would have been passed in the UK.
Well, Connie, that's why they're no longer in power. Connie Shaw, thank you very much indeed. Wise words, yes, always insightful.